Welcome to The Explainer. So, if you're a modern business leader, or maybe a really focused economics student, you deal with a very specific, honestly pretty stressful problem every single day. There's just never enough time, money, or manpower to do everything you want to do. That problem has a name, and it's called scarcity. But what if I told you that the key to navigating this incredibly modern 21st century puzzle actually lies with an 18th century Scottish philosopher? Today, we are stepping into an executive time machine. We're going to see how Adam Smith's foundational ideas about trade and labor seamlessly connect to the modern mathematical frameworks we use for resource allocation today.
Here's our roadmap for today. 1. The philosopher of empathy. 2. Markets versus mercantilism. 3. Division of labor today. 4. Scarcity and resource allocation. 5. Production possibility frontier explained. And 6. We'll wrap up with an economics master study review.
All right, part 1. The philosopher of empathy. The moral foundations of economics.
You know, when we hear the name Adam Smith, we almost always think of him strictly as the father of economics, or the father of capitalism, right? But actually, born in 1723 in Kirkcaldy, Scotland, Smith's earliest major work wasn't about money at all. Back in 1759, he published The Theory of Moral Sentiments. He was this core figure in the Scottish Enlightenment, and around 1750, he formed a profoundly deep intellectual bond with the philosopher David Hume. Together, they spent years exploring history, politics, and ethics. Smith was, at his core, a pioneer of moral philosophy. He viewed human empathy as the absolute bedrock of society long before he ever tackled the mechanics of wealth.
What's absolutely fascinating here is how Smith bridged the gap between that moral philosophy and everyday human action. He believed that our rational self-interest, our drive to just improve our own lives, actually acts as an invisible hand guiding social well-being. By pursuing what's best for ourselves, we inadvertently produce the goods, the services, and the innovations that benefit society as a whole. Empathy and self-interest, they weren't opposites to Smith. They were gears working perfectly together in the exact same machine.
Moving to Section 2, Markets versus Mercantilism, a paradigm shift in global trade.
To really get Smith's genius, we have to look at the world he was arguing against. At the time, Western Europe was completely obsessed with a system called mercantilism. This was a super rigid setup where nations basically tried to hoard gold and silver, heavily restricted imports with tariffs, and tried to maximize their exports. It was treating global wealth like a giant fixed pie. Smith completely shattered this paradigm. He argued instead for what he called a simple system of natural liberty. He proved that a nation's true wealth isn't the gold locked away in its vaults. It's the productive labor of its people and its willingness to engage in open, barrier-free trade. To make this idea really accessible, Smith used a brilliant, simple story about local traders, the town and the country. The country supplies the town with food and raw materials, and in return, the town supplies the country with manufactured goods. One doesn't win at the expense of the other. The gains are entirely mutual and reciprocal. Exchange, he pointed out, is not a zero-sum game where someone has to lose for you to win. It is a fundamental mechanism for mutual enrichment. Section 3. Division of labor today. The engine of opulence. So how exactly do we create more of this wealth? Well, Smith's answer was the division of labor. He famously noted that dividing work creates a massive multiplication of production, leading to what he beautifully called universal opulence. By breaking down a huge, complex job into smaller, repetitive tasks, workers gain incredible skill, dexterity, and speed.
Now, Smith's theory applies directly to modern business leaders today, literally right now. Whether you're running a boutique software development firm or a giant manufacturing plant, the steps are exactly the same. Step 1, identify the complete task. Step 2, subdivide it into smaller, specialized parcels. Step 3, assign your workers to these specialized roles. When you do this, you aren't just organizing your team, you are actively multiplying their output without adding a single extra hour to the workday. It's a real game changer.
Okay, Section 4, Scarcity and Resource Allocation. The fundamental economic problem.
But you might be wondering, why do we have to divide labor and optimize everything so ruthlessly in the first place? Because of one totally unavoidable reality: scarcity. Economics teaches us that human wants are infinite, but our resources, our time, materials, and capital are strictly limited. This clash between unlimited wants and limited resources means that as decision makers, we are constantly forced to make choices. We simply cannot have it all.
And because we can't have it all, every choice has a shadow. We call this opportunity cost. If a farmer uses a field to grow wheat, the opportunity cost is the barley he could have grown there instead. If you spend your whole weekend studying, the opportunity cost is the leisure time you gave up. As economists love to say, there is no such thing as a free lunch. Every single decision you make, in business or in life, requires a trade-off.
Section 5, Production Possibility Frontier Explained. Visualizing trade-offs.
To visualize these trade-offs mathematically, economists use something called the Production Possibility Frontier, or PPF. Imagine an economy that only produces two things: bikes and cars. If they throw all their resources into bikes, they make 80, but 0 cars. Now, if they want to produce just 2 cars, they have to drop bike production down to 70. The opportunity cost is right there in the data. Producing those cars meant sacrificing bikes. The PPF is essentially the ultimate map of Adam Smith's division of labor applied to efficient resource use. It shows you the absolute maximum boundary of what your resources can physically achieve. But here's the thing. This frontier isn't static. It shifts. An outward shift to the right is what every single nation and business leader wants. That's economic growth. This happens when you discover new resources or invent better technology, like, say, a new AI tool that speeds up your workflow. But beware the inward shift. Things like natural disasters, resource depletion, or a loss of your workforce will actually shrink your total productive capacity, meaning your economy can produce less of everything.
Finally, Section 6, Economics Master Study Review. Testing your knowledge.
Let's do a quick, rapid-fire review to really lock these crucial concepts in. Here is our first study question, and it's vital for exams and business strategy alike. Why is the production possibility frontier also known as the opportunity cost curve? Think about the shape of it and what happens as we move along that line.
And here's the answer. Moving along the curve literally forces a trade-off. To get more of product A, you physically have to pull resources away from product B. The mathematical slope of the curve at any given point is the exact literal representation of that opportunity cost.
All right, question 2. What does it mean if an economy, or even your specific business, is operating on a point inside the PPF curve rather than right on the edge of the curve itself? Basically, the crucial point is this. Operating inside the curve is a massive failure of efficiency. It means you are not fully utilizing your resources. You've got idle machines, underemployed workers, or misallocated capital. Your overall output is way lower than what you are actually capable of achieving. You're wasting the exact resources that Adam Smith taught us to maximize. So we've traveled all the way from the Scottish Enlightenment right to the cutting edge of modern economic theory. Adam Smith showed us that mutual exchange and specialized labor create incredible wealth, while the PPF model proves mathematically that every single choice carries a cost. So I want to leave you with this provocative thought. Knowing that your resources are limited, How will you choose to allocate your time and capital today to push your own production possibility frontier outward? Thank you so much for joining this explainer, and keep pushing those boundaries.